High up in the Andes Mountains, more than 4,000 meters above sea level, there is an animal most people have never heard of. Its hair sells for more money, pound for pound, than silver. This animal is not raised on a farm. It cannot be milked or bred like a cow. It lives wild, in air so thin that visitors get dizzy just walking around. Once a year, in a tradition that started with the Inca Empire hundreds of years ago, whole communities work together to catch this animal by hand. They take a small amount of its fur. Then they let it go, unharmed. So, how does a wild animal that no one owns turn into the material for a $30,000 coat? And more importantly, who actually gets that money? This is the vicuña. It is the wild relative of the alpaca, and it's the smallest member of the camel family, which also includes llamas. Adult vicuñas weigh about 40 to 50 kilograms, not much bigger than a large dog. They have long necks, big dark eyes, and a coat that blends into the mountains around them. That coat is the whole reason this story exists. Vicuña wool is about 12 to 14 microns thick. That's thinner than cashmere, and thinner than almost any other animal fiber on Earth. It traps warm air so well that it kept vicuñas alive through freezing Andean nights. People noticed this a very long time ago. But here's the first problem. One vicuña only grows about 200 to 250 grams of usable wool, and it can only be sheared once every 2 or 3 years. A sheep, by comparison, grows several kilograms of wool every single year. This is naturally a very slow business. Under the Inca Empire, this rareness was not an accident. It was the point. Only royalty were allowed to wear vicuña wool. Regular people could not touch it. Killing a vicuña was punished by death. Once a year, the Incas held a ceremony called a chaccu. They rounded up the vicuñas, sheared them, and let them go. That same basic method is still used today. Then the Spanish arrived, and all of those protections disappeared. For the next 400 years, anyone could hunt vicuñas. The easiest way to get the wool wasn't shearing the animal, it was killing it and stripping its skin. By the middle of the 1900s, this had nearly wiped the species out. Here is a number that should stop you. In the 1950s, there were about 400,000 vicuñas across South America. By 1967, there were only about 10,000 left. In less than 20 years, the population dropped by more than 97%. This is the big question of this documentary. How did an animal on the edge of extinction become a legal, global luxury product and end up with a larger population today than it's had in over 100 years? We'll answer that soon. The turning point came in 1969. Peru created the Convention for the Conservation of the Vicuña. Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, and Ecuador soon joined. In 1975, a new worldwide treaty called CITES placed the vicuña under its strictest protection. This banned all international trade of vicuña products. For about 10 years, that was the whole plan. Protect the animal and don't let anyone sell anything made from it. But protection alone caused a new problem. Local communities in the Andes, some of the poorest in South America, lived right next to this animal. They were not allowed to make any money from it, even though it grazed on land they needed for their own animals. There was no reason for them to protect the vicuña, and every reason for outsiders to keep hunting it illegally. If you're enjoying this story about how a nearly extinct animal became a legal luxury product, now is a good time to subscribe, because the part where the money starts moving gets complicated. So in 1979, the countries changed their plan. Instead of a total ban, they built a new system. Communities could legally shear live wild vicuñas, never kill them, and sell the wool, but only under strict government limits. Over time, sites allowed some countries to trade vicuña fiber again, as long as it came from live animals, not dead ones. That one change is the main reason the vicuña exists in large numbers today. Peru's population alone grew from a few thousand animals to more than 200,000 over about 40 years. Today, total estimates across all 4 countries range from about 350,000 to 500,000. Different studies give different numbers, so there's no single agreed figure. Either way, this is one of the most well-known conservation success stories in modern history. In 2008, an international wildlife group moved the vicuña off the endangered list completely. But turning a wild animal into a legal export doesn't answer who does the work and who gets paid for it. That's the next part of the story. Every year, in the Peruvian region of Ayacucho and other high mountain areas, communities hold the modern chaccu. Hundreds of people, sometimes a whole village, form a long human line across the open land. They walk for hours, slowly pushing wild vicuñas toward a temporary pen shaped like a giant funnel. No fences
trucks.
ahead of time. No drugs to calm the animals. Just people, walking at extreme altitude. Once the vicuñas are in the pen, workers hold each one down, usually 2 people per animal, while another person shears its wool by hand. Government rules decide which animals are old enough and healthy enough to be sheared. Afterward, every vicuña is set free again, unharmed. In Bolivia, families from the Aymara community can gather about 40 kilograms of raw wool in a single day of roundup. That raw wool is not finished. It still has thick, rough hairs mixed in with the soft, fine hair, and those have to be pulled out by hand. A skilled worker can separate about 30 grams a day. That means it takes roughly 1 full month of daily work just to clean 1 kilogram of usable wool. So who actually buys this wool? Almost none of it goes to regular shoppers. The buyers are a small group of very high-end fashion companies, and one company buys the most. Loro Piana, an Italian fashion brand owned by the luxury company LVMH. Industry sources say Loro Piana buys around half of all the vicuña wool exported from Peru. The wool is shipped to Italy, cleaned by machine, and woven into scarves, suits, and coats, sold to wealthy customers around the world. Here's what this wool is worth at each step. Raw, unwashed vicuña wool sells for about $300 to $600 per kilogram, depending on quality and the year. Once it's cleaned and spun into thread, that same kilogram is worth closer to $2,000. A finished vicuña scarf can cost $3,000 to $7,000. A full coat, like Loro Piana's well-known Harlan coat, has sold for more than $30,000. Vicuña is, by most measures, the most expensive natural fiber in the world. It costs roughly twice as much as the next most expensive luxury fiber. Now let's answer the big question from earlier. If a coat sells for $30,000 and the wool inside it came from a Peruvian community that isn't even allowed to farm the animal, how much of that money actually reaches the people doing the work? According to news reports from Bloomberg and other outlets, communities in Peru's Lucanas area have received about $280 for each kilogram of wool sold to Loro Piana. That's far below the final price of a coat, though it's close to normal market rates for raw wool. From that payment, the community's leaders then have to pay outside workers who help run the chaccu, reportedly about $20 a day, before sharing what's left with everyone else. In some cases, according to these reports, community members said they were paid little or nothing at all for their work. Loro Piana has pushed back on claims of unfair treatment. The company says it pays communities directly for the wool, and that how the money is then shared is a decision made by the community's own leaders, not the company. Loro Piana also says it has increased checks on its suppliers and funds local health and infrastructure projects with non-profit partners. Peruvian officials have said better systems are needed to make sure money is shared fairly once it reaches the community. This is not a simple story of a company cheating people. It's also not a simple story of ethical fashion either. The price of the wool itself is public and controlled by law. But what happens to that money after the first sale is much harder to track, and researchers who study this trade have pointed to it as one of the system's unsolved problems. There's a second cost in this business that has nothing to do with pay: illegal hunting. Even with legal shearing allowed, killing a vicuña for its skin is still faster and easier than organizing a chaccu. That's exactly why illegal hunting has never fully stopped. Researchers have recorded thousands of dead vicuñas over the past several years, found stripped of their wool. Some investigations point to growing demand in Asian luxury markets, though a direct link has not been proven. This illegal wool competes with the legal system, and it weakens the very reason communities have to protect the animal in the first place. Conservation experts say this is the hardest problem to solve. The same system that protects the vicuña is also what makes killing one profitable for smugglers. So, is the vicuña really worth what people pay for it? In one way, yes. The rareness, the altitude, the hand labor, and the difficulty of processing all explain the high price, at least by the rules of the luxury market. Regular wool can be woven by machine at about 400 stitches per minute. Vicuña wool breaks if you go faster than about 260 stitches per minute. That means even the best factories in Italy can't fully speed up the process. The cost is real. It's not made up. But in another way, the price tag hides a lot. It doesn't show the long walk across the mountains. It doesn't show the month of hand labor needed to clean just 1 kilogram of wool. And depending on which community you ask, it may not show what the workers actually take home. More than 50 years ago, this animal was disappearing. Today, there are hundreds of thousands of them. That recovery is real, and it's one of the true success stories in modern wildlife protection, built on the simple idea that an animal is worth more alive than dead. But maybe the real value of the vicuña was never just the price someone in Milan is willing to pay for a coat. It's the fragile connection between a billionaire's closet and a family shearing wool by hand at 4,000 meters, and whether that connection can stay fair on both ends. If you want to learn the hidden economy behind another animal, subscribe and stay with us. There's always more beneath the surface.